No matter how deep one goes into darkness, the time will come when they will hit the pain breach. Find out more in this episode of New Earth Teachings. Hello, I'm Brad Johnson, and welcome to the next episode of New Earth Teachings. And what we're going to explore in this episode is going to be about the pain breach. Now, when I'm talking about the pain breach, what I'm referring to is that each and every single one of us, every soul within creation, is going to reach a particular point where all of the suffering, all of the animosity and conflict, everything pertaining to misery, everything pertaining to anger, fear, all of these very heavy, dense emotional states are going to eventually lead to one person going into a state of breach. It's like breaking a barrier. Now, when I'm talking about the idea of a pain breach, we are looking at a world where we see a lot of people polluting, we see a lot of corruption, we see these corporations running the planet with greed in mind. They really don't care so much about the idea about what the people think. They just want to keep milking the resources of this planet for more and more and more money, more and more and more greed, and again, going into these deep states of corruption. Now, what is going to happen is that when a person continues to explore that amount of conflict, that state of corruption, that fear, that aggression, that anger, each and every particular being is going to hit a particular barrier that is going to break and shatter themselves, and they will immediately start venturing towards the light again. Which means that the idea of our darkness, our shadow, has a limit for every single soul in existence. So you may turn on the television, you may look on the internet, and you may see these really horrible people doing disastrous things to this planet. That again, they run twisted corporations, and they are all about trying to get as much money, trying to create as much control and conflict as possible. And again, we look at them and we just feel disgusted by everything that they're doing. And of course, this is understandable because when we look at it in that way, we've reached a particular point of harmony within ourselves that we could never imagine going to that length relating to how that particular person is going to that length relating to corruption and conflict and control. However, when that person continues to follow that particular course, where they go into the deepest states of corruption, the deepest states of control, because it is all just part of an element of fear, they are going to hit a point of no return, and that is going to be a breach. So this breach, if I was to use an analogy, let's imagine a rubber ball that we're holding, and we are just in the middle of an ocean, and we're taking that rubber ball and we're submerging ourselves deeply into the ocean, and we're pushing that rubber ball deeply as we can into the great depths of the ocean. But there will come a point where that ball will slip from our grip and instantly start to rise back up to the surface again. Well, the surface represents that breaking point into light. So we could look at the aspect of the domain where we're looking at the surface of the ocean, and when we start to go deep, we're going deeply into the darkness, we're going deeply into the shadows, and that rubber ball is being pushed all the way down as much as possible by this particular person. And that rubber ball really represents that person's own threshold. And if that threshold therefore slips from their grip, it's going to bounce itself back up, and we are now going to have an opportunity to bounce ourselves back up into the light. We're going to come to the surface again. We're no longer going to see ourselves as this deep sea diver trying to push this rubber ball all the way down to the ocean floor. We're not going to be able to make it. The pressure is too strong. Well, that is exactly what's happening relating to one's fear, control, conflict. They are going to hit a breach. And that is the idea of what the breach is going to do. This is why when you are trying to convince a person that what they're doing is wrong, all they will do most of the time when they're again looking at this aspect of great fear is deny. They'll basically do gaslighting forms of reasoning to basically feel that you're crazy, you're insane, you don't know what you're talking about, and I'm purely innocent. I'm not doing anything wrong. You see, again, that's what we experience in the common world. Nobody thinks that they're doing a wrong thing. Nobody thinks that their deeds are purely evil, that what they're doing is absolutely corrupt to the bone. They don't see that. Even though when they look inside themselves, they will see this monster of fear growing bigger and bigger and bigger each and every single day. But again, when we're looking at these people that feel that they have to do this type of work, they have to do this type of business, they run this type of corporation, and they do not see what they're doing, we are just exposing everything that they are doing, and that is part of the pressure that's going against that rubber ball that represents themselves. And that threshold is going to bounce out of their hands, and it's going to jump right back up into the surface, which means you can only go so far into the darkness without your conscience starting to say, hey, what am I doing here? What's going on? I think I'm going too far. And it can even be at the point where your own conscience is being scared out of the darkness and being brought directly into the light. Everybody will go this path. Does not matter how twisted or how convoluted, how conflicting, how corrupt that individual is. Everybody will get there. This is all part of the universal laws. This is what the universal laws do, relating to the aspect of rapport and to correspondence and to the aspect of coherency, to karma, to free will, to causality. All of those laws work together. And as the Creator has created this universe where those laws govern this entire universe, it does not matter how deep you go into darkness, because you're eventually going to bounce back up into the surface again. And when that person hits the breach, they will be a shell of their former selves. They will be in absolute misery. They're going to feel so much conflict flowing through themselves because they're going to look at what they're doing and they're saying, what have I done? What have I done to myself? What have I done to people? It's going to snap, right? That person is going to snap back into the light. Every single soul is going to go there. So this is why we do not have the aspect of quote-unquote forceful intervention. Because if we had forceful intervention, nobody is going to learn about the limits of the extremes that they are going to become an example for a person, a group, or even the entire collective consciousness of what not to do. If it's one thing that humans excel at, it's the ability to go to the extremes. That's what we do. We surf the contrast of reality. We can be the brightest people, we can be the dullest people, we can be the most noble people, we can be the most corrupt people. It is all based upon our alignments. And again, there are many people on this planet who feel that they can go as deeply as they want to go against harmony. They want to create control. They want to create conflict. They want to create disharmony. But that is only going to be pushed down so far. Because what this person is doing, who's going into these depths of corruption, is they're very slowly building up this fearful monster within themselves. And that fearful monster is going to scare them so much that they will hit breach. That breach cord will snap. That pressure will become too much. And the ball will bounce itself right back up into the surface. And now what that person has to do is start working on atoning for everything that they have done. You cannot escape that. If you are manipulating people, if you are corrupting people, if you are creating any particular type of harsh fear, if you're dabbling in a lot of the black magic that a lot of these people are doing, This is inescapable. You are going to tarnish your own soul by doing such a thing. And a person is going to spend an enormous amount of time, either in incarnation or in the spirit world, trying to work off so much debt that they are putting upon themselves. Because this is how it works, right? We understand the universal law of karma. Well, what is it that karma represents? Karma is action. That is what action is. Action is karma, karma is action. And we are having this record, notating everything that we're doing in reality, in life. And again, if we're writing down all of these deeds, right, looking at that on a spiritual level, writing down all of these deeds that are corrupt and conflicting, manipulating people, having an insurmountable amount of greed that is just completely taking us over, all of this is being written down. All of this is being documented. All of this is being recorded. And your soul is going to get more dim and more dim and more dim. It's going to go into darkness. There will be hardly any light in that soul. But again, no matter how deeply you go into darkness, you will snap. You will hit the breach. And this is the pain breach. So this is where it's not about having to constantly retaliate against these particular people. It's not about retaliation. It's about the idea of exposure. You want to expose their information. You want to expose everything that they're doing, and that is part of the pressure that's eventually going to take that rubber ball, knock it out of that person's ego's hands, and again, hitting the surface. So the whole idea here in that sense is not feeling that you need to fight fire with fire, because what you're doing is you're dragging yourself down with that person, right? If you ever get into the idea of an eye for an eye, a life for a life, you are no better than that person themselves. You cannot defeat that idea of a person by playing with fire when they're playing with an inferno. You're only going to add to it. And I know this is very, very difficult for many of us to accept, because if we start playing this game, we start going to their base level, then you are only going to get burned with them. It goes back to what Jesus said as well. He who lives by the sword dies by the sword. And that's what many of us want to take up. We want to take up these swords and we just want to cut this person down. We want to feel that they are hurting the planet so much. They are causing environmental destruction. They don't care about the people. They will continue to run these corrupt organizations and bringing the earth into a state of chaos. Well, that's exactly what they are doing, because they are looking, if you're looking at this in a real bird's eye perspective, you're seeing how these particular corporations are acting that way. They are permitted to go into these states of extremes because they're showing us in plain sight who not to become, what not to do to the planet, how not to behave, how not to correspond with what they are doing. Because again, this is all part of the example of how we become a better people. We have to look into the gritty extremes of what these people are doing. Because what they're doing is sinking themselves deeper and deeper and deeper until they hit the pain breach. And when they hit breach, you can't go any further. You're just shut down. Now, some will realize the error of their ways and they will work to atone. And they will work to help hundreds, thousands, or even millions of people. They may start to use their fortunes, and they may start to work in bringing in some type of atonement that's helping to reverse a lot of the damage they've done. And when if someone does that, then yes, you're going to have a lot more of a supportive climb back into the light. But when a person in that sense is wallowing in their own misery, they're defeated, they're afraid, they don't know what to do, and they become stagnant, then they are going to have one heck of a time trying to climb an almost impossible hill to work off a great deal of karmic debt based upon their actions. Okay? So this is again where we're getting a little bit past the idea of positive or negative karma. It really just comes down into the broad spectrum of one's actions. If one is hurting another person, then the only way that person is going to return back into balance is if he's helping, if he's serving innocence back in return of an equal value point. This again relates to the idea of equivalent exchange. And again, if we do not do that, if we do not start to work together in helping to harmonize a situation, then we're just going to wallow ourselves into this great depth of shadow, and we're just going to be haunted by our own visions of fear, our own feelings of guilt. This is again what is going to lead a self-destructive path, because when you start dabbling in the aspect of this shadow degree of yourself, yes, you're going to sink deeper and deeper into the bottom of the ocean, and that rubber ball is going to bounce itself back up into the surface, but you're going to feel like you're just floating in the darkness depths of the ocean. And only you yourself are making the decision to swim upwards and start to go up into the surface and catapult yourself into the light. And that comes when a person realizes what they have done and they want to create self-correction. Self-correction is the antidote when one hits the pain breach. So when you are breached, and this doesn't always have to come to the idea of corporations and these multi-billionaires, these elitists. It can come through ourselves as well too. It comes through individuals. But when you hit that breach, you can either stay and wallow and stagnate and feel like there's an impossible climb ahead of you, or you can start taking action. You can start moving action in the other direction towards the idea of the light. And you start atoning for what you have done. You start atoning for feeling that you have used people, that you have been overly greedy, that you've been aggressive with others, that you feel you're superior and they're inferior, whatever it may be. All of this, when you get into that mentality and you continue to submerge that aspect of yourself deeper and deeper and deeper into the ocean, it's going to slip for you as well too. This is going to be happening to every single person upon the planet. Those who have already done their inner work already know this. We've all hit a breach. Sometimes these breaches can be light, sometimes they can be not too bad, some of them can be heavy, some of them can be extremely heavy. And again, we hit that breach. Everyone has their own layer to where the breach itself is hit. So you want to be very, very aware about how you decide to conduct your own actions, because everything is being recorded, everything's being documented, everything is being saved through the higher levels of consciousness. It does not forget. If you use a person, it's not like the universe is going to do this and saying, oh, I don't see that person, I don't see him doing that. Nope, it's okay. He can get away scot-free. She can get away scot-free. No. It is going to remember everything that you do. And even when you transition from this life filled with regret, you're going to face those situations when you transition back into spirit. It's unavoidable. If you cause harm to yourself, to others, to the environment, to whatever it may be, it is going to come back to you. You are going to feel the emotional anguish of everybody that you have lashed out at, that you have put all of that horribleness upon. You're going to feel exactly what it was like for them to feel the pain that you were creating in that way towards them. This again is what we often call the life review. Everybody goes through their life review. No one is exempt from their life review. You will again experience everything from the day that you're born to where you are right now, and every particular form of hardship in between is going to come directly towards you. And you're not only going to experience your own pain, you're going to experience the pain of everybody else that felt the result, the consequences of your actions that again represented a harming of innocence. You will of course experience your triumphs as well too. But it's like looking at a movie where you are linked up to it. And you're linked up to every single person that you are coming in connection with. And so again, you will experience your breach. If you have the opportunity to work with that breach and you start to serve innocence, you're going to see that, you're going to feel that upliftment that happens when you go into that state of life review. Because you'll feel that pain, but then you'll know that you made an uphill climb. You worked with that. Just like me myself, I was able to go through a lot of hardships. I was able to cause pain to quite a few people as well too. And I know I'm going to be experiencing that in my life review as well. But what I have done is work to serve innocence, to make up for a lot of people that I have hurt in times past. And I know that that is going to be something that I'm going to have to experience as well too. But I'm also going to see exactly the triumph that comes, because it's all about a person who wants to atone, a person who wants to work with these energies that have been very dense and purify them and bring them back into the light. We are all going to experience that. I know some people may not want to hear that and saying, "Oh, brother, that feels horrible. It feels horrible that I have to feel this deeply for myself, and I have to feel this with everybody else that maybe I've caused hurt for." Why does that happen? Because we are everybody else. Because everybody is connected together with us. This is interconnectedness. This is oneness. When we hurt another person, we're hurting ourselves. When we uplift another person, we're uplifting ourselves. So this is what the breach is attempting to teach you. This again is why there has been no forceful intervention relating to the affairs taking place upon this planet. We have to face these affairs ourselves because we're personally creating them as a collective. We have to deal with them. We have to take care of them. We have to resolve them. We expose. We don't retaliate. We don't light up a torch and try and burn a person alive because they're doing that. We just expose what they are doing. And all of that pressure is going to cause them to hit breach. And as they do that, they are going to realize what they've done, and many of them will atone for what they have been doing. And their aspect of empires will crumble to the ground, and new empires will come together because people are being educated in what not to do in life. And now the grassroots start to grow. They grow abundantly. And now over these old empires that have crumbled and fallen, the grassroots are now becoming powerful oak trees, powerful pine trees. All of this beautiful nature is coming up because now we have discovered an organic way of working together with each other, of working together to help the planet, of creating organizations that are in complement to ourselves and to the environment and to nature and to the earth. That's what we're going to learn by going through these intense trials of painful breaches that are again commencing right now. So whether it's through your own personal pain breach or whether you're looking at a collective pain breach, nonetheless, we can only go so far into the darkness before we say, okay, enough is enough. I see what I'm doing. I'm going to change. That rubber ball comes up into the surface, and now we shift our perspectives. Now we come into the light. And this is something that every single soul is going to experience. This is exactly how the Creator has created the universe. It is designed specifically to take you into the greatest tour of your own horrors, of your own fears, so that you say, okay, I've had enough, and you breach. And as soon as you breach, you now start to work either slowly or quickly towards the light. And you will never, ever go into that state of pain again. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Brad Johnson, and I look forward to speaking to you again in the next episode. Take care, and may it be well with you. If you've enjoyed this video, please feel free to visit my website, newearthteachings.com, private sessions, healing sessions, digital courses, and a lot more. newearthteachings.com. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again in the next video. Namaste.